So what do you think, Friedge? Can the Caps work out a trade for Kuzi? Because it does not seem like it's working out for him with them anymore.
No, Jamie, I don't think that's going to be a trade. A year ago, if you go back to the draft, or not quite a year ago, but if you go back to last draft, they had something they were talking about with Nashville that Kuznetsov would have gone to the Predators for Matt Duchene, and that didn't work. And ultimately, the Predators bought out Duchene, and he went to Dallas, where he's had a really good year. And don't forget who's running the Predators now. It's Barry Trotz, who won a Stanley Cup with Kuznetsov at his best in 2018. So that's why they talked about it. I don't think there's really a trade here. I think we've got, two options. Number one is a buyout at the end of the season, and that would make Kuznetsov an unrestricted free agent. Or number two, would there be any scenario where you consider what Philip Zadina did? He left several million on the table, took a termination from the Red Wings and signed with San Jose for a new opportunity. I think that's very unlikely unless there was a team willing to make the money close. But I think those are really the two best options. So he might just have to play out the year and then become an unrestricted free agent in the summer after a buyout.
Okay, so no more trade talks probably for Kuzi. Meanwhile, we have all the trade talks about Jacob Markstrom. We've been talking about it for weeks, back and forth with the situation. I read your latest, but maybe you can share with our viewers, what is the latest on Jacob Markstrom's saga?
Well, what is the latest is that as of the weekend, the Calgary Flames had indicated they had taken Jacob Markstrom off the market, that, they were happy with the way they were going. They've won 5 in a row. They've beaten some really good teams. Markstrom, to his credit, in the middle of all this, has been playing great. And the Flames wanted to give it a shot. Now, what Markstrom's issue was that a few weeks ago, when they were just around the time they went into New Jersey, there was a trade on the table with the Devils and the Flames where Markstrom would have been going to New Jersey. Now, I've had varying differences of opinion on how close it was or wasn't. But the one thing I believe is that Markstrom knew about it. He was asked if he would consider the Devils. He said he would. He said he would go there. And they were working on the deal. Then all of a sudden, everything changed. And he was told that it's not going to happen and we're not trading you. And I think what Markstrom's issue is that if you were not going to trade me, why did you even bring up the issue? Mm-hmm. Why did you even bring up the possibility? I think that's what bothered him. I think like with a lot of us is that when you're a single person, you don't really care about it too much. But when you have your family and he's married with a young child, just turned 1 year old, I just don't think he liked that was all affected. So that's why Markstrom is upset. Now, I understand the Devils still very much want Markstrom. They know he's willing to play for them. So I think the question is going to be, does that rekindle at all this week? Or do we talk about this in the offseason where the Flames and the Devils talk again? They want him. They really like him. I just don't know what kind of situation we're in as if it'll happen now or it might have to wait, but that's why he was upset.
Well, the only word that comes to mind to me is messy. It's just messy right now with Markstrom in Calgary. So it's cringeworthy, too, it comes to mind, because it's a team that, like you said, is on a 5-game win streak, so they want their goalie very happy if they're going to do anything in the playoffs. But we'll save that for another day. We'll see how it all shakes out before Friday's deadline. All right, Elliot, we want to get your opinion on some potential trades that our research department cooked up. It's a segment called Making Your Moves Count, presented by TurboTax, as we get closer and closer to the NHL trade deadline on March 8th. Who says no to this one? Jake Gensel to Vegas. Penguins get a first-rounder, Brisson, and Edstrom. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that last week when I did this segment, your staff did a great job, but I had a lot of people telling me I'd make an awful general manager. I just want to say that for the record. I have to say, this one's pretty interesting to me. I think this is one that the Penguins would definitely consider. They want prospects who are ready to play, as opposed to first round picks. But that has, 2 players and a first rounder. I would be curious to see what kind of offer the Penguins would get that would beat that. The only thing that could really happen was if they got offered a prospect by another team or the Golden Knights that they liked better. But that is, generally, if that's the kind of offer the Penguins are going to get, that's the kind of offer that they're going to consider. And Vegas is aggressive. I think they want to try to get their hands on one of the best wingers available, and I absolutely believe that Gensel is on their radar.
Yeah, and all of a sudden the Vegas Golden Knights would look like this up front with Gensel on the left side of Jack Eichel and Marchessault.
The rich get richer.
Well, the thing is, when you look at that trade, Brendan Brisson, former first-round pick, right? They'd give up their first-round pick from this year, which would be a later first-round pick. Edstrom, I'm not too sure. Was he a first-rounder?
I think he was. We did this last week, and he was a first round.
Okay, so that's 3 first-round picks for Gensel. Gensel's an unrestricted free agent, so they'd have to sign him. That's giving up a lot, but if somebody's going to do it, it would be the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, I mean,
Edstrom was the last pick of the first round a couple years ago.
Yeah, a first rounder, yeah.
Right. And I think Elliot brings up a good point, because Pittsburgh's in a tough spot, as we talked earlier. They need to make the playoffs sooner than later. They can't afford to miss years with Crosby and Malkin being as old as they are. So, yes, you're giving up Gensel right now, but they need guys who can contribute right away. And maybe they can turn that first-round pick this year into something else. Maybe they trade that at the draft to, bolster their roster with a younger player. But, I mean, in my opinion, Gensel might be the best player on the market.
I think so.
No disrespect to Lindholm, who got traded already, or Monahan, or Hanifin, or Tanev, but you don't see a lot of 40-goal scorers consistently move teams mid-season.
Multiple cups to his name.
Exactly. So, I mean, he's probably, I think, the biggest difference maker in terms of an instant impact for a team. And like you said, Vegas is not shy about emptying the coffers to make a move. So I think it'd be a fascinating deal. I think it would be good enough for Pittsburgh to consider if they're not in the playoffs and not thinking they're going to make it. So that's just my thought.
Just real quick, I think Toronto, I don't know if they've got enough to give up. They'd love to get him. And Vancouver, for sure, would love to get a Gensel. Would they have enough? We'll have to wait and see.
What about Carolina? I mean, they need a game breaker.
They need game breakers, yeah. They're under the radar right now.
You guys have just said, I don't think Toronto can do it. Like, if this is the kind of deal it's going to take, Toronto can't do that. But Carolina definitely can. Historically, they do not like rentals, but sooner or later, you've got to jump in the pool, and they've got a good team, and I would consider it. And I do think Vancouver is in this too. Like this Podkolzin call up in the last couple of days, you can't help but wonder if the Canucks are showcasing him a bit.
Well, they'll try to make their moves count come deadline time. Let's go on to another potential trade with Noah Hanifin's name certainly out there. Do you think the Bruins could use him? They'd have to give up DeBrusk, Lysell, and a first-round pick in next year's draft, according to this potential trade. Do you like it, Elliot?
If there's an extension involved, which I see at the bottom of the screen, I would say the staff takes care of a lot of things. I think the Flames would ask for more than this. I do. I mean, the issue with I don't like talking about DeBrusk very much because I work with his dad and he can hurt me.
He doesn't watch this show, so go ahead and talk.
No, he's not watching,
I'm not always comfortable talking about DeBrusk because he's, I work with his dad, but, he's an unrestricted free agent, so you got to know that you can be able to sign him. But I do think if there's an extension here and it would be under your circumstances, I could see the Flames asking for more. I don't know if they would get it, but I could see them asking for more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as a pure rental, that might be good. But as you said, if there's an extension involved, they probably would want more. Again, DeBrusk is a free agent, so you don't know if you're going to keep him as an asset. And Fabian Lysell, I mean, I played against him in Providence last few years. Nice player, but he's still a ways away, and there's still some question marks on his consistency and how hard he plays. And, the offensive skill is there, but I think Calgary really have to love him as a prospect to be like, this is the guy we want. Maybe they ask for a Mason Lohrei instead to maybe replace Hanifin. Maybe that gets the deal done, in your opinion, Elliot. But, again, as a rental, I don't mind that for Calgary. But, yes, with the extension, I think it's a little bit light on their end, depending on how they like the players involved.
That'd be a pretty formidable top 6 if you're the Boston Bruins. And Hanifin, of course, is a Boston native.
He sure is.
Oh, boy.
Played at BC, your alma mater.
Go Eagles, come.
Okay.
And I think he's taken it to another level this year, Elliot. We don't get to see him play as much as you do. I've always liked Noah Hanifin. I liked him when he was in Carolina. But he's playing with confidence, and he's skating the puck, and he's got a good shot. He checks all the boxes. He's not overly physical, but he checks all the boxes, and he's a left-shot defenseman, something the Boston Bruins could certainly use. So I look at the New Jersey Devils. I mean, the New Jersey Devils could use a guy like Noah Hanifin. They do have a lot of prospects that are trade-worthy. So that could be a possible trade, too.
And Calgary, New Jersey have been talking for weeks anyway, so, maybe it's just a new name that comes out of the conversation this time instead. We'll see. One more for you here. Nick Bjugstad. A lot of people talking about him, and could he be a fit with the Avalanche, maybe? And a fourth-rounder for a first-round pick for the Yotes.
The first thing I would mention, there's Patrick Venberg. He's being held out. by the Kraken for trade moves. I don't think that's Colorado. So that leaves the opportunity. This one I think is really interesting. Bjugstad's got another year. I think Colorado would do that. I do. I think they would consider a first rounder for Bjugstad for a player with a bit of term. I bet you they'd probably want not to give up the first rounder, but they've done it in the past. My question is, would somehow Arizona be asking for a bit more than that for a player with term? The next year's and the other problem too, Jamie, I have with this is that teams are really down on this draft after about pick 20. Like if you take a look at it, Vancouver's traded their pick. And Calgary had a chance to trade for a first rounder late in this year's draft, and they preferred a second and a prospect who they like. So I think the other issue Arizona might have with that proposal is that teams aren't crazy about the late first round this year.
That's interesting because, I mean, personally, I like Bjugstad as a player, but if you're going to give up your first rounder, maybe go after a Buchnevich or a Gensel, maybe package as a part of a bigger deal to get a more impactful player. I mean, again, I like Bjugstad and his style and his size and all that. But to your point, if the first rounders are not being valued after pick 20, where Colorado will probably fall, then maybe that devalues their first rounder specifically. So that was something I hadn't considered. But overall, I mean, again, that's pretty solid. You slot him in the second. Is he a second line center? I don't know. I don't know if he has that offensive upside, but he's a good playoff guy, a good depth centerman in the playoffs, big body who can hang, and he was a big ad last year at the deadline. So, I mean, I like him as a player. I just don't know, again, depending on the value of that first-round pick, if he's worth a first-rounder. But that was a good point raised by Elliot with the draft this year.
Colorado's still looking to replace Nazem Kadri.
Right, they still need a second-line center.
Kadri was there when they won the Cup, and then Alex Newhook was supposed to be that guy, but they traded him to Montreal. Bjugstad, I liked him when he got to Edmonton last year. I thought that might push Edmonton, over the top because he's a big centerman. He can lug, some minutes, can kill some penalties. Not overly physical. But, that would be interesting for Colorado. I could certainly see them doing something like that.
All right. Well, thanks so much for playing along with us, Elliot. Don't worry, you're off the hook. These are all potential trades dreamed up by our esteemed researcher, Lawrence Goldstein. He did a great job coming up with these.
LG.
And we'll see what transpires over the next few days. I hope you get some rest in between now and then. And if not, you can always sleep later in the off season.
Sleep is for after the deadline. I'll be much more disheveled than this, guys. Good to chat up with you.